Hey, everybody, we're going to be talking about cannabis and maybe its use in children with special needs, not necessarily on the autism spectrum, because there are kids out there who have problems with overwhelming anxiety, children out there who have problems with focus and concentration, and the parents don't want to go down that route of Ritalin, Vyvanse, Adderall, Cylard, the list goes on and on. Or they've tried them and the side effects were terrible. The kid stopped eating, stopped sleeping, became irritable and cranky. There's a lot of reasons to look to more natural products for healing. And I always start there with our kids. I try not to go to the pharmaceutical lines because as they just seem to have more potential side effects for the children that I treat, who are pretty special and can be in some ways fragile medically, and what should work with them doesn't. So we talked about last time, as we prepare our children and for a cannabis product, we have to ask, what are we trying to do? In other words, some of the questions in here would say, what is the best cannabis for a child with autism and ADHD? That's kind of broad. What is the best product for a child with autism? Again, I try to break it down in that I don't really look at the autism diagnosis. I look at the other diagnosis in there. A fancy word in medicine is called comorbid. That means there are other things going on too. So you can have, say, a child with autism who is constipated. Well, constipation is a comorbid condition because it's going along, it just happens to be in a child with autism. And here's where people have a real problem. I don't want you to fix my kid's autism. I'll say, fine. Don't think of autism as a disease. Fine again. Can I fix his constipation? Can I fix his broken arm? Can I fix his lack of ability to participate in our world? And then the answer is yes. So that's kind of how I look at things. And when I look at these questions, I like to see a little bit more detail about what exactly are we trying to accomplish with a child. So therefore, I can be a little more exacting, though working with cannabis is not all that exact. But having a better chance of picking the right products for our kids. If I have a child with epilepsy, if I have a child who's not sleeping, if I have a child who has chronic inflammation. I saw a young lady yesterday with what's called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and all her joints are inflamed. Of course, I'm going to want to pick something that doesn't sedate her, but something that has more effect against inflammation. Okay, so there's kind of in a nutshell how I look at it. As we spoke about last time, these kids definitely benefit from a low sugar diet, a high protein diet, low carbohydrates. They've got to be moving their bowels well. If they're not doing any of those things, it's just not going to come together. Like I had a child just right before our time together, and they said that soda is like speed for the kid. I mean, you could just see a countenance change, physical body change. Everything changes when he gets a soda. So I'm sitting there going, so why are we giving sodas to this kid? It's already proving to be a toxin for his brain. Why are we doing that? So you can imagine if I have a family who's giving soda to their kid and they're trying to fix problems with cannabis, it's just not going to work. So we have to look at the whole child, see what's going on in their environment, see what they're putting on into their internal environment, get that all tuned up, and then ask our cannabis to really rock and roll with sleep, focus, concentration, relaxation, decrease anxiety.
Mhm.
Okay, so with that said, and I know you kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the terpenes today.
We got a lot of questions on afterwards. That was one of the things that people were asking a lot about because they know that you blend in terpenes. And so we got like quite a few questions on that. Yeah, if you could kind of touch on that subject and maybe kind of explain, I guess, like the difference that you see between when someone's using a product and then you maybe not really seeing the results that you want, and then you have them add the terpenes. What differences are you seeing?
All right, well, the cannabis plant, if we were going to look at cannabis indica and we were going to not worry about taking out the THC, I mean, this is OG Kush, or this is Girl Scout cookie, or it has everything, especially if we're talking about the bud. It has everything in the plant. So they call that whole plant therapy.
Okay.
Hemp. Okay. That's when you go to the dispensary. And there are some kids who actually need that THC blend too, with all those natural chemicals that are in the cannabis plant. When they try to make it where you have everything but the THC, the plant has to go through a distillation process where they're actually able to process out all those other parts of the cannabis plant. And now we just have CBD. Now, in the process of that, they are able to figure out how to distillate other terpenes out, and they come out at different temperatures, and they can actually have different, I want to say aliquots, but different amounts of these chemicals as a byproduct, and they can add it back in. So first they have to prove that here's pure CBD oil. And that's really, really important because you don't know what you're getting when you buy other products out there at the gas station or at the dispensaries or whatever. When Miriam's Hope Hemp says it's got 300 milligrams per ml, it's got 300 milligrams of CBD per ml. When they say that there's less than 0.3% THC, or in their special products, no THC, you know exactly what you are getting. It's that quality testing. And that's why I primarily use Miriam's Hope Hemp, as you know, is because my kids demand the best. So my families that say have anxiety, but they work for the FBI or whatever, we can't have any THC because those guys and gals are tested routinely in security leaks to see if that's urination, okay, to see if they have any illegal substances in their body. Okay, so anyway, the terpenes add back certain characteristics to the CBD that might help us with focus, concentration, anti-inflammation. But what are terpenes? So terpenes are natural compounds commonly found in plants that give them their smell and their taste. So for example, when you walk through a pine forest and you smell the pine tree, or if you cheat and you just put a bottle of Pine Sol into a bucket of water, that pine smell that you're smelling is the pine terpene, okay? And that is just one of many that give the plant its smell quality, its taste quality, and in our particular case, a calming quality. And there's myrcene. So there's a whole bunch of these, and there are charts that, especially by leafly.com, that can show you different strains that have predominant amounts of this terpene or that terpene. This one will help with anxiety. This one will help with inflammation. This one will help with sleep. This one will help with attention deficit disorder. So the good folks over at Miriam's Hope Hemp have actually got these terpenes, and they'll add them into our product, whatever I tend to use, for free, at least for now, until they get smart and add something. Well, it's $2 more if we add the terpene.
No, we'll never charge for that.
But right now it's free, and that actually adds to the quality of what I'm trying to get done. And so, for example, the daily 25 or the daily 50 or the daily 100 is just a perfect CBD product. But if I'm trying to use it for attention deficit disorder, I just tell the parents to say, let them know, speak to my friend Judy over there and tell her that you want the ADHD terpenes that we've already worked out, put in that product, and boom, it's done. So the terpenes can help us to a higher degree than the CBD, the CBN alone, the CBG alone. So it's kind of an added benefit. And not everybody needs them, but boy, when you do and they're added, it makes another nice change. It's not huge, but it's not subtle. It's definitely definite, where parents can tell the difference when we add them in. So bottom line is the terpenes are what give the plants their smells and their tastes. Turmeric, that we use, curcumin. I mean, all the things, pepper, lemon. These are all the things that give plants their smells, but they work in the brain. And that's the idea behind some of the essential oils in the aromatherapy,
Right.
that these terpenes by themselves, when inhaled, can bring calming. And it works. It does work. I mean, it's layers of working. It's not perfect. You can't take somebody who's hyperactive and just diffuse lavender oil, and it will help, but it's not perfect. It's a combination. So everybody, we have to get sugar out of their diet. They have to eat as organic as possible. They have to reduce the amount of carbohydrates. You're never going to find anywhere in the literature that says if you have a child with ADHD, give them more sugar and more carbs. Okay. It's always going to be less and more protein. A lot of the kids I take care of, they don't like protein. So that's a whole different problem. Make sure they're moving their bowels once or twice a day. And then, hey, now we can focus on focus, or we can focus on anxiety, or we can focus on sleep. And that's kind of my approach. Does that explain it well?
Yeah. No, yeah, it does. Oh, thank you.
Okay. Now, I got questions from last time that were left over. And so again, this question number 13 that I have here illustrates my point about being a little more specific. Are there specific formulas of CBD out there that are better for those with tick-borne diseases? And my question about the tick-borne disease is, well, what particular complaints do you have with that tick-borne disease? So that's how I'm going to look at it. Are you having problems sleeping, or are you fatigued? Are you having aches and pains, thinking of inflammation? Okay. And what else are you doing for that tick-borne disease? How are we lowering the inflammation that's in there? Have we been treated with antibiotics? I mean, then we need probiotics. I mean, there's a lot of things that come with tick-borne disease. Tick-borne disease has been around long. Why does everybody have Lyme's disease now? I mean, I got bit by tons of ticks when I was a park ranger, and I don't have, Lyme's disease. Why is my immune system able to manage that better than a lot of people now? As a pediatrician, I've been around strep throat tons of times. I don't have pandas or pans. My immune system knows what to do with it. But nowadays, a lot of people's immune systems are confused and they don't know how to manage these. So they kind of fester. And anyway, so there's a good illustration of, I need something more specific. Can I use that? Yes. Can I also use ivermectin to treat tick-borne disease? Well, yes, too. Okay. If you've heard about ivermectin. So there's a lot of interesting things out there that we can do. Why is it so hard to find the right doses and right strain and the right terpene for oppositional defiant disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, attention deficit disorder, and attention deficit with hyperactivity in autism? Wow. Well, because maybe some of these things aren't really designed to be used with cannabis. I would never treat oppositional defiant disorder with a cannabis product. I probably wouldn't use a cannabis product when I think about obsessive compulsive disease. That's a hard one to treat for our kids. But I would treat it for hyperactivity and attention deficit disorder. And again, I'm not treating autism ever with a cannabis product. I'm treating something of autism with it. So that's probably why it's hard to find the right dose. If you are telling me that your child has all of those particular diagnoses, then you're going to have to take care of each one of those, kind of like the different stanzas in classical music, that go along the page. And you're going to have to treat this stanza with one thing and this stanza with another, because that obsessive compulsive behavior might be a pandas-like reaction, a reaction to a strep infection or something like that. And we have to treat that, but that doesn't mean we can't treat the anxiety component and the focus problem, the third stanza down, with the cannabis product. Okay. And then the oppositional defiant disorder we treat with something different. So when I used to do just general peds, it was one thing. Kid comes in with a cold and now has right ear pain. I treat the right ear pain, the cold's going to go away. One thing, one antibiotic, and I'm done. I don't even want to do that anymore, but that's what I used to do. A child comes in who's not gaining weight and it's constipated. Now let's treat the constipation and give them a digestive enzyme. Boom, two things. But sometimes we have these are such complicated diseases that it's just not one thing and done. I wish I just had a script pad of maybe 16 different versions of CBD oil, and I just give them a click, 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 and it'd be easy. But these kids are very complicated, as you can see. Question: what single area of improvement have you seen cannabis being more effective with ASD? I'd have to say anxiety. If you ask me which one best, anxiety. Okay. The next one would be pain, chronic pain. Okay. The next one right up there would be sleep. So those would be my top three. Would you say that CBD is a treatment for autism? No. I just got through saying, yeah. Aren't you listening? Okay. Or a maintenance treatment. That. Yes, right. Okay. Are the benefits of CBD lost if you combine them with the use of essential oils? No, I mean, they're going two different ways. The interesting thing about essential oils is you've got these molecules that are being atomized and you're breathing them in and they're getting into the bloodstream and going directly to the brain, kind of like you're smoking them. Okay. So they're going to work there. That's not going to discount anything that we do orally. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Dr. Kartzinel, we have a question from somebody that's watching right now. Would you mind?
No way. Bring it on.
Okay, so Heidi wants to know, she said, my son has mood swings all the time. I'm not sure which CBD to give him. How would you answer that?
Neither am I. Okay, so first of all, mood swings in a 15-year-old female that's menstruating versus mood swings in a 5-year-old male. Mood swings new, or we've always had mood swings. When we say mood swings, are we talking about being angry when we're told no? Or are we talking about just things are going along and all of a sudden they break out in tears, crying, I'm sad, I'm sad. Okay. So when you think about mood swings, again, I'm going to try very diligently to figure this out. Are the mood swings better after a bowel movement? Are the mood swings worse before a bowel movement? Are the mood swings worse after we eat? I mean, there's a lot to it. They just don't have mood swings. So therefore, you don't just treat with cannabis because it's not going to work. So that's what I'm saying. It's when you give something like that, there's no way I could possibly answer that. If you said to me, I have a child who is very, very flat, very and nothing seems to make them happy, or they're sad, they're always sad, then I have to ask, well, what's going on with nutrition, and what's going on with the bowel movements, what's going on with bacteria and yeast. And then you might say, okay, maybe I need to use something that's a mood elevator. I'm giving them SAMI, I'm giving them 5-hydroxytryptophan. Now I'm going to give them CBD. I might need to move out of CBD and add a little THC. And therefore we'd go into, at least in the state of Florida, we can get the medical marijuana, and then we can combine the CBD oil with the THC and come up with a combination. Well, where do you start? 20 to 1, 10 to 1, 5 to 1, 1 to 1, 1 to 5. So that's where we have to work with the kids. And another question is there, how do you start with the dosing? Well, again, the dosing generally starts low and I work it up, and I can change the dose every 3 to 4 days. You don't have to wait 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. So I like to start low and move my dose up. All righty. Therefore, when it says, what's the average dose for a teen? Haven't a clue. There are some kids who do well with your 25, your daily 25, which is 25 milligrams per 1 ml. And there are some kids who need the 100 milligrams, the daily 100. Okay. Yeah. And so we have to tailor or dial in the right dose for your child, looking at the symptoms. Okay. Do you have COVID? Should you be wearing a mask? Should you be wearing a mask right now, young lady? You're going to give all these people COVID.
No, I've been going from state to state, different drastic weather changes, and it's been affecting my
I understand.
my well-being. I come back and I get sick and I go to California and I'm fine.
So what
So
cannabis product do you need for your cough? I mean, that's kind of no, I
I
just
don't know,
need to
you
stop
tell
going.
me.
Okay. Do parasites absorb or steal CBD much like they do vitamins and minerals? If so, is there a specific cleanse? Well, you probably have some pretty happy parasites if you're taking CBD. You have to understand that we have good parasites, just like we have bad parasites. We have good bacteria, we call them probiotics, and our body is full of trillions of hopefully good bacteria, but there are bad bacteria too that will kill you. All parasites aren't bad, and all parasites aren't good. In fact, parasites actually modulate our immune systems so they don't become inflammatory and they don't become autoimmune. That's what parasites do. So there was a book that was written, I think in the 80s, that said, eat your dirt, because we've gotten very clean as a society. We don't go outside and play, and we don't play. Man, when I was a kid growing up, we were in the backyard digging holes and tunnels and all kinds of neat stuff and playing in the dirt. We don't do that anymore. So we were exposed to healthy parasites. Okay. But not all parasites are bad and not all parasites are good. Do they actually absorb? We don't know what they do with CBD. Nobody studied that. In fact, CBD is still CBD in cannabis, and their applications to disease in human beings is still relatively new. Okay. And of course, they always talk about the well-controlled studies, and there are a few out there, but a lot of them are not well-controlled studies. They're studies, but they're not well-controlled. I mean, you give one person a true tincture and you give the other person a fake tincture and see who gets better. It's tough. It's a tough one out there. What is the best strain and dosage to start with? Now, when you talk about strains, you're talking about the whole plant. When we talk about CBD oil, we don't talk about strains, okay? Nobody knows what strain Miriam's CBD comes from, unless you guys know. Is there a particular plant that you use for CBD?
We've pretty much kept the same. When we first started, we started using like an ACDC strain. And we've pretty much kept the profile the same. So like if you were to look at like an ACDC profile, like a true ACDC profile, we pretty much kept the same profile since we first started carrying CBD, what, 8 years ago.
Because it works. So for
Right.
people out there, they gave all these strains of marijuana plants some very interesting names.
Mhm.
Okay. And this is a strain of a true marijuana plant, not just a industrial hemp plant.
Right.
And so therefore, when they are distilling it out, distilling the THC, what do you do with the THC once you get it out? No, never mind, I don't want to know. But they distill out all of the different parts of that plant, and just the CBD component is what's sold. That's what's legal, okay, through all the states. Anyway, so here, when you say what is the best strain and doses to start with, when we're talking about Miriam's, we're just going to be using the ACDC. And I'd imagine the same with the other big makers, the other quality makers. They're not just dumping off whatever grass is dropped off at the front door and boiling it down. They're
Right.
probably very, very, very specific, that it hasn't had pesticides used in its growth. Okay, that it's an organically grown, very clean crop, and very well looked after and evaluated after it was done, so they know exactly this is 100 milligrams per ml. They kind of make the dilution so it is consistent. So when we talk about which strains, this is not how we think about CBD oil. Okay, when I'm using a plant, because and using a tincture from an ACD or a Purple Kush or OG Kush or Girl Scout cookie, then I'm looking more for an indica strain in the line of work that I do, as opposed to a sativa strain. The indica strain is going to be more relaxing. Very rarely with the children on the autism spectrum do I have kids who are in couch lock, couch potatoes. They're mostly Tiggers, bouncy, flouncy all over the place. Some of them are more like an electron circling an atom. So I don't need sativa. I need something that is going to calm them. So that's an indica strain. And then the other thing to look at, because you asked and other people are probably thinking about the whole area, and this goes again, outside Miriam's Hope hemp capacity of what they're able to provide, and that's fine because this is a cannabis talk too. Um, then there is a ratio between CBDs, which we've just learned about, and THC. Okay, THC is what gets you high. So if you were to take something that had pure THC, you'd be stoned. Okay, CBD is what keeps you from getting stoned. So the CBD actually counteracts the THC as long as there's enough CBD out there. So some people need 20 CBDs to 1 THC. That's probably where I start. And then we'll go to 10 or 5 CBD. Once you get down to 3 or 2, you do run the risk of making your little pumpkin high. And you'll know it too, because they're going to just zone out, their eyes will get bloodshot, and they'll be craving Led Zeppelin albums and chocolate. but that's not where we're trying to go. We're not trying to get them ever high, euphoric. We're trying to get them calm, but not sedated, just calm in a natural way. Get them to function like I function every day, where they're not in a million different areas. So, and how do you know if you've developed tolerance? That does happen, especially with the THC. It's not working anymore. Like my kid was doing so great for the past month, and now it's not working. Do I go up on the dose, or do I give him a 3-day holiday, or do I change the product? So sometimes what I do is I change the products, which means changing the strain and changing the concentration. It's kind of like allergy medicine. You're taking Zyrtec and it doesn't work, I switch to Allegra. Allegra's working for about 2 months, it doesn't work anymore, then I switch to Claritin. Claritin's working for 2 months, now it's not working anymore, I go back to Zyrtec. So sometimes the body just needs to have a little refresher course. But the biggest thing is what was working isn't working anymore. And now you know you've developed some sort of tolerance there. All right, now, can you use it before or after surgery? It depends on obviously what kind of surgery, what kind of anesthesia. Are you just going in for some dental work, or are you going in to have your appendix removed? Or are you going into something that's going to affect your heart valves and big time surgery? That's probably something that you should discuss with your doctor, but generally you probably not be on it for about 2 days before and after. And we'll let modern medicine and Valium take over for your pre-op, or Versed or something like that. Anyway, that's something that you have to be very careful, because some of these cannabis products do interact with what we use in the operating room, and you don't want to have any problems there. So that's a good point. Okay, now let's see. I want to make sure I answered all the questions. Any more questions come in on your end?
Do you have any more? No, not as of right now.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, these are some of the, let me see. Okay, let me see. So we have 2 of them. One of them says, can you give me an example of how CBD oil has helped a child that is low functioning?
Okay. Again, when you have a child who's low functioning, it's a constellation of things. Now, low functioning meaning they have had a insult to the brain where their IQ has been damaged, okay, versus a child who's low functioning that has a genetic disorder like Prader-Willi, or is just perceived as low functioning because we're not talking yet. Okay, so I don't know what low functioning means to this particular person asking the question. If this low functioning is a child who's not had a gluten-free and dairy-free diet, it might be the morphines that the gluten and dairy are generating in their system that are keeping that child low functioning. Look, 80 to 90% of the kids in my practice have autism, but their IQ is intact. 10, 15% of the kids in my practice, their IQ has really been damaged, but we have to be careful how we look at that. If I were to go to France and take an IQ test today, how would I do? I'd do terrible. I don't speak French. I don't understand what you're telling me, and I cannot communicate what I know. So my IQ will look low functioning. But a year from now, I take that same test and I score really high on it. Why? Because now I understand French. I studied French for that year. Did my IQ change? No, but my ability to communicate my thoughts and ideas and understand your thoughts and ideas improved dramatically. So that's mostly what I see with our kids. So when they're in my clinic, I always treat them as if they're understanding everything I say. And I've gotten cards from the teens who have been working with me for a while, saying, thank you for not treating me like I was an idiot or
Oh,
yelling at me. Because a lot of people think they equate low functioning with being deaf. So they talk really loud. It's like, they're not deaf.
right.
Or they talk really simple to them, like, you go here. It's like, don't do that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even talk to my dog that way. My wife might, but I wouldn't. So anyway, be very careful assigning low functioning. Now, beside that, what are we trying to improve? Focus, concentration, attentiveness. Do they have a tremendous amount of ADD? They're not turning to mom's voice. Those are things that I ask. How's our eye contact? Approximately where are we at turning to his name? If you ask for Susan, Susan, she never turns to her name, but
Mhm.
she can hear the TV set a mile away when it turns on. So I know it's not a hearing problem. Or she turns to her voice 90% of the time now since we started this stuff. So they're becoming more attentive, more in our world, less in theirs. That's a tough question. So I don't have a CBD product for that.
Right. Yeah.
It's a constellation of things.
Yeah. Okay, the next question. Excuse me. Okay, I think I give my son cannabis with medical permission ratio. Sorry, the English is a little off. I give my son cannabis with medical permission ratio of a 1-to-1, but it was so strange. He turned aggressive, then try only CBD and didn't see anything. Does that mean my son is not a good fit for cannabis?
Well, again, what are we trying to do with the cannabis? Why did we go to 1-to-1? Is he aggressive? Was he pinching, biting, breaking things? I mean, that's a big dose
Mhm.
to try on a kid. I would never try 1-to-1. I would come in at 20-to-1 and maybe down to 15 or 13-to-1, depending on what the dispensary had, and then a 10-to-1. And then I'd look at what strains we're using, what terpenes are in there. But again, cannabis, that's a good point that she brings out. I've had kids, if you even say the word cannabis, they go nuts. Okay. I mean, it's just the wrong treatment for them. It's just not what they need. You stimulate the CBD receptor sites with CBD, and that's not a good thing. And I had one kid who actually developed hives with a CBD oil. Go figure.
Oh, wow.
How do you develop hives with CBD? I mean, it's a plant. Well, we can develop hives with peanuts. It's just a plant. Okay. So it's possible. So it's not for everybody, but I certainly wouldn't have tried a 1-to-1. And yes, I have seen where certain strains or certain approaches actually make things worse. It just is what it is. But I'd probably go to a 5 or a 10-to-1, and I'd probably change brands,
Right.
depending on what they did. I wouldn't use the same company.
Yeah. No, I agree. Definitely. I think that's definitely something where it's kind of like in any other situation, like you want to try different doses but yeah, I mean, starting at a 1-to-1 is I'm really kind of, like you said, you would never really start there with a kid.
I wouldn't start that with an adult either. And, again, if it's more of a sativa strain, that's more associated with paranoia. And the kid might have gotten paranoid. I mean, we don't know what's going on in these brains. So, but all we do know is it was bad. So we don't do bad anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have, I think those are the only ones that we've had so far.
Okay, then we are done, believe it or not.
Awesome.
Fastest half hour in broadcast history.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Kartzinel, for coming back on. Again, we just had so many people asking questions and wanting to hear more from you. So we appreciate you coming back on, and hopefully we can do this again sometime.
You bet. When you get more questions, let me know and we'll put you in a time slot.
We
Not a
will.
problem.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Have
Take
a good
care.
weekend. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.